Hey, Mike,
Hey, what's up, Derek?
did you notice we have a guest today?
I do.
It's kind of obvious when you have three faces on the screen instead of
Yeah,
two,
I'm
I
kind of
guess.
slow, Derek, but I figured that part out.
How's it going? This is our friend. He's my friend. He's a great guy, Mr.
Everybody's friend.
Eric Baker. Eric, how are you?
I'm really well, and I'm very excited to be here. I've been a big fan for a while, and I think I've even seen a few episodes where I've been mentioned, and I feel like I need to be here to set the record straight on anything
Yeah.
that
Defend
might be
yourself.
said. That's exactly right.
So you heard that, did you?
I did.
All right. And I can't believe that there's anybody that doesn't know. But if there are people that don't know, Eric, tell us, where did the music bug bite you? When did you decide, hey, I might? And I assume you started on trumpet, but
I did. I
okay.
did. And I'm kind of the stereotypical like Texas band kid. So I moved to Texas when I was about 8. And so both my parents were very accomplished, but amateur musicians, primarily working in the church. Mom plays the organ and piano. Dad was leading the choir. He's a singer. And so grew up around music my whole life.
Hey,
And
I'm going
in,
to interrupt you already because if you haven't, I'm going to give Dad a shout out. Probably the
oh yeah,
best Star Spangled Banner at a Rangers game
I
all the
agree with
time.
that. I
So
agree with that statement. My dad holds the record in my life for the best version of the national anthem ever,
yeah,
ever.
he's awesome. Great
He,
tenor.
he does it right. So, sixth grade comes around. It's time to sign up for band, and I was dead set on being a percussionist. And my parents said, absolutely not. There's no drumming in this house. And, the church we were going to at the time wasn't really into that kind of stuff. So they were like, that's not the skill you're going to use here
Right.
very often. Pick something melodic. And so I chose the trumpet. And
Okay.
so that stuck with me. My beginner band director was Paul Bramlett. That was in the Keller School District. Grew up in that area, Bear
Okay.
Creek
All right.
Intermediate School. Also, he was a fantastic cornet trumpet player himself, and so he taught us very well. And then kind of just went through the high school thing, marching band and concert band and jazz band and all of that. Um, Pretty sure that I was going to be a music educator. I was so blessed to have wonderful music educators in my life. All of my private lesson teachers, my band directors, were such great positive influences in my life. I thought this would be a great job. I love this. I want to
And
do this.
I wanted to ask you that because I've told Mr. Lunny before. I saw Bugler's Holiday in the sixth grade by one of the service bands. Immediately went home and said, "Dad, I'm going to be a trumpet player." That was
This is
too
it.
cool. But by my seventh or eighth grade year, I was also, I'm going to be a band director. I'm going to be a music educator, and
Yeah.
I never varied from that. Ironically, I never did it,
Yeah.
but that's why I went to school. So I don't know, was it that early that you kind of had some of those inklings? This is what you'd like to do.
I think so. I think that probably developed through high school. I think I was a pretty oblivious like junior high boy. I weep when I think about what some of my teachers probably had to go through with me. I was never malicious. It was just dumb.
Yeah,
You're just a dumb kid that doesn't
got
turn
it.
in his homework and talks during the lecture. Like you're just being dumb.
Right.
But by high school, I had been given some leadership opportunities, and those had kind of worked out. And so through just those experiences, you kind of start to wonder like, oh, well, I took this sectional and we did some pretty good work here. Maybe there's an opportunity to be a music educator. So I went to UT Arlington and was a music education major. I met my soon to be wife there. I mean, she was my soon to be. She is my wife
She
now.
is
I
now.
feel
Just
like
clarifying.
I need to clarify that. We just celebrated 20 years together this summer. So we are very, very married. But I met her in college there in music theory class, and so we started dating, and all that was great. So fast forward, everything's going well, and I'm doing my student teaching, which of course was going very well. I enjoyed every bit of my student teaching, but there was one comment that I had from one of my mentor teachers during that, and I asked him, I said, "So you're a trumpet player. How often do you still get to perform and play and gig as a band director?" And he said, "Not often." As a 6A Texas high school band director, this is your life. This is your job. It's rewarding. It's good work, but you're not going to have a whole lot of time for other things. And it kind of pricked my soul a little bit to hear him say that because I do love the trumpet and I love playing. And so I thought, well, I was student teaching in the fall. I had to finish up my degree in the spring. I said, I'm a little late to the game, but let me see what I can do about auditioning for some graduate work. And let me see what grad school might look like as a trumpet performance major. If I can get into a good school with a good scholarship, that's kind of a good green flag that this might be something I need to pursue. So I auditioned for Arizona State University with the fabulous trumpet teacher David Hickman, and I got a full ride. And he called me within a few days of my audition and said, "Look, I love your playing. I think you do well here, and I want to give you that for free." And that's all the sign I needed. So
I'm here to say green
That's
flags.
awesome.
we
Yeah.
graduated, we got married, and then we moved all within the span of about 2 months to Phoenix, and I did 2 years there. While I was there, this job opened up in what is now called the West Texas Symphony. So I auditioned for co-principal trumpet for the West Texas Symphony, got that job, and moved here to West Texas in 2006.
Cool.
And that's what brought us out here.
And I'm, you know, take this the right way. You were here for a while, and I kept hearing your name, and I was like, who are we talking about?
Yeah.
Because I've been doing what I do at a retail store since 1990. And I was like, but you also came, I think the first time I met you, you were actually doing a clinic at Andrews, which is community in Texas, a little north of us. And I was like, man, that's an energy guy. But I'm going to back up on you just a minute, because as
Sure.
I pull up my Ask Mike bingo card today, we are all trumpet players. Check.
Is that the
can
free
all-
space? Trumpet has been mentioned.
That's right.
We all were music educator, at least in college.
Mhm.
But I think you two guys have something on your card that I don't, and I'm curious where it fit in there, and that's DCI. And I love DCI. And I'm pretty ardent supporter of certain groups, but I have no problem. I thought this year, if you listen to this in the future, this is 2024, Blue Coats were no doubt far and away, easy definition, the best score I saw this year. So
Yeah.
having said that, you guys both spent some time. Mr. Lunny, tell us about your corps.
Well, I was kind of Stone Age compared to Eric. We had just received our piston valve G bugles.
Amazing.
My first year marching in 1981 in the Skyriders. So I did 81, 82, 83. Skyriders had kind of a good little run there in the 80s, 6 times in the top 12 and got 6th place. One year we were 4th in brass in finals. And so we were excited. And then the Corps went broke. So in 93. So we're trying to resurrect it. But I'm going to throw a name at you that you're not ready for, probably, if I'm totally off base on this. But in the Cavies, Jeff Waldmuller.
Yeah, I know Jeff.
He was a student of mine at Holiday.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I talked to him the other day, said we were doing this. So he said, hey, link me into when that comes out,
Oh,
when it
that's
airs
awesome.
or whatever, because
Hey,
he
Jeff.
has good memories for you, you know.
Oh, of course. Yeah, well, so many of we talked about, the influence of a good music educator in somebody's life, and so many of mine, I would realize had marched in the Skyriders for years, and I don't know exactly if any of them crossed paths with you, but a great euphonium tuba teacher that was around in my high school years was Gail Rask. I think he marched, and Todd Dixon was a drummer, and he marched Skyriders, I believe, and so he was one of my influences and mentor teachers even to this day. So many people that were influential in my life came out of that corps.
Very cool. Very cool.
Right.
And I always enjoyed y'all's work. I mean, I don't have those gold and silver medals.
I was going to say, so I do have a little bit.
I just see
right
the little
Look
here.
at the swag up. I didn't even notice.
So this is, I finally have a proper place, and I took the time to do some of this. But so I marched, almost exactly 20 years later. So I'm that next generation. So 2000, 2002, and 2003. I didn't march in 2001 because at that time our college jazz band had a trip planned that summer to go to Germany and Switzerland. And I kind of just made a choice. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get out of the country like that before. I still have 2 more years to march. So I did take a year off. I don't really know. I don't think I regret it. They were great years, all of them. So
Cool.
But those are actually my greens from 2000. They went to a different uniform the next year, and so they let all of us go ahead and purchase those and kind of buy it as a piece of memorabilia and help financially support the Corps. And I do have the medals up there. We did win in 2000, tied with the cadets. We won in 2002, and then silver medal in 2003, my age out. And I've got the picture here. I think you can only see two of the years, but that's a really tall poster, which has all three. There we go. All 3 years that I marched all together. And then I've got a drum head over here. That's all of the members of the 2003 Corps. So the year that I aged out, we
That is
all passed
cool.
around a timpani head, and I ended up with that. So that's kind of special to me as well.
And I
So let
did
me
get to
ask.
watch you march in 2000 in
Oh,
person.
really?
Yeah, I was in is wasn't that the one at Maryland?
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
Foxborough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because remember we
So you were
started
at
the
finals
chant.
then.
Yeah, we started the chant, no more ties, no more ties, no more
And
ties.
guess
Me and
what?
my 10 friends.
And guess what?
Yeah,
That is also a formative memory because I was a new guy that year. I didn't know what drum corps was. I just was told to march my dots and play my notes.
that's right.
And so we're there in retreat, and we've been in 100 retreats so far. We know how this goes. They count up, the placement in fifth place, in fourth place, in third place, and then so they say third place, and then I'm expecting to get in second place the Cavaliers, and they say receiving the gold medals, which
Yeah, I
it's that
remember that.
iconic voice of Brent Crocker, and
Yeah.
it's something weird, and I thought, oh, how embarrassing! They skipped us. They
They
here I am
forgot
at
us.
finals, and they didn't even acknowledge the core that's standing right here in second place. And I remember kind of whispering to my guy, like, they missed us. He goes, "We just won DCI, you dork." Like,
That
and
was a
then, of
cool
course, they
moment.
say with this score, the Cavaliers and the Cadets, and the place just went bananas because
Yeah,
they
that
had
show was
just had
stunning.
ties.
So
Yeah.
let me uh, pop a quick question in and sit back and listen. And this doesn't have to take a long time. Just quick opinion. DCI, if the high school student's interested, how do they? I, I I'm I would have been interested. I had no idea how to do any of that.
Yeah.
How do you get connected in something like that? And number two, carefully put, helped, stunted, just was in addition to your musical education paths.
Well, for me, it I came out of high school wanting to be a band director, and then I did not make the all-state band, so I decided I wasn't good enough.
Hmm.
And then John Simpson, who's the horn instructor at the Skyriders, had him for 3 years, 3 summers. And just from watching him work, I decided to be a band director. So that's how influential it is. He literally changed the course of my life.
Right.
So I'll just say that. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you asked several questions. How do you get started? For me, it was just a couple of friends that said, "We're going to go audition for the Cavaliers. Do you want to come with us?" This was the idea of like social media or even the internet wasn't super huge. Like not everybody had a big presence. So you kind of had to know about things and have that word of mouth. Nowadays, it's all over social media. You can send somebody a private message and get an audition packet right away. So the barrier to entry is pretty low, which I think is great. That just
Hmm.
democratizes the activity, that makes more people able to do it and raises the standard.
Right.
And I think everything is a compromise. You talk about does it help or does it hurt? As a music educator, it helped me greatly. Not only did I network and have all these friends now that are usually in that same scene, so many of us went into music education after that, but the caption heads and the staff there were some of the best. And
Oh,
so to
yeah.
hear them work and to watch them work, not only the content, right? Not only like, wow, F descending is that's the perfect, warm up for every band. It's not so much that, it's the way that they would work with you, right? There's a coach mentality when you need to be firm with your kids because they can do more and they're just not, and you need to push them. They would do that. When the students were working, when we as a core were doing all that we could, but the results just weren't there, the staff wasn't laying that on us. They were saying, "Now we see the hard work. Let's dial this back and re-evaluate what we're trying to do." So for me as an educator, I learned a ton. Now, as a performer, one might make the case that I wasted all this time outside marching in band, and I could have been, going to the Aspen or Brevard or Interlochen, these sort of, symphonically geared summer programs. And I think you can make that argument if you want. For me, it's worked out okay, but everything in life is a compromise. You make the best choices you can, and for me, it worked out well to do DCI.
Cool. And listen, I'm still the guy that if it's been somewhat stressful, there are times that I may go put my headphones on and pull up some of the videos of the warm-ups, and it just still kind of gets that tingle, woo.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I just never listen. I knew about Spirit of Atlanta in the 70s. I
Hmm.
mean, a lot of our shows were in the high school I went to, Let It Be Me from one of their shows is still one of the greatest charts I've ever played ever. I just loved it. And I'm a marching band guy. So,
Hmm.
but as educators, as former educators, I, I guess where I was going is don't tell your kids no if that's something they want to do. Encourage, or you find out how to get them hooked up. Because I only see positive out of it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
do think it's something that everybody needs to know. It's not cheap or free,
It's a big
but
part of it.
the experience, and I would dare say you've all both already said it, and Mike, Eric, to clue you in, there's sometimes I'll go through the stats and I'm like, who do you know in Germany? Who do you know in these
Yeah.
weird places?
Hawaii.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
They're
marched
all
with
over.
them.
Yeah.
I marched with
England.
them at Skyriders.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
lifelong is kind of where I'm
Lifelong.
going.
And just, I don't know, there is a special bond. I don't know, Skyriders was a co-ed corps. The Cavaliers is an all-male corps, and I don't know really, I only ever marched with the Cavaliers, but there is a brotherhood there. There is a fraternity
Yeah.
element to this where if I post online, this happened many years ago. I posted that I was taking a trip up to Bloomington. I was going to be there for about a week doing a music workshop, and a buddy reached out and said, "Hey, I'm out of town, but why don't you just use my apartment? Don't get a hotel. Like I'll leave the key under the mat. There's some groceries there. There's all this stuff. Like just use my place." And
Wow.
we had spent 1 or 2 summers together at most.
Right.
But he just said, "Hey, I want you to have this," and
Well, you say that lightly. When you say you spend a summer together, you're
well, that's
talking
true.
24/7
Yeah.
for
Yep.
160 days, right? Or
Yep.
however long.
Sleeping on gym floors.
That's right. Suffering together.
Suffering.
Cool. Well, I'm envious, not in a negative way. That's just something I think is so cool. Um, and it's one of the things I always imagined until I heard that because of, I don't think they do it anymore, but two valve bugle. I was like, what?
Isn't that
I don't
wild?
know. What's the fingering for F there?
Yeah,
It's still first
it's
valve.
still first valve. That's right.
That's right.
So I brought that up because I want you to talk for a second, if you will. For those of
Well, we
you
give
who
him 2 seconds.
haven't had the pleasure of seeing Trumpets Mic'd Up, and I think I saw that it just started season 10.
Yes.
Talk
Yes.
to us a little bit. That's crazy. Because another thing that's not on my bingo card
Mhm.
is singing a song from Frozen going viral, playing tequila out the roof of my vehicle going viral, Trumpets Mic'd Up everywhere. Talk to us a little bit. How do you keep walking into these viral situations like that?
I really don't know. And I'll tell you, the ones that take the least amount of work are the ones that do the most. Like
just feel
they
good,
have the
right?
most success. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard to plan these things and predict them. Well, Trumpets Mic'd Up started with I think just me watching some baseball last summer, and through my social media feed, sometimes I'll have the players mic'd up, and you can kind of
Right.
hear them talking over on first base or whatever, and they'll have some funny moments where the players are joking around with one another, and I always find that really entertaining. And I thought, I wonder if you can do that in an orchestra. I wonder if that translates the same way. And I said, I've got these mics. I can throw my phone up or some kind of a camera and just try. And so at the first rehearsal of our symphony season last year, I just asked the guys, I said, "Hey, Ben, John, I got this harebrained scheme. Do you mind just being mic'd up? If there's anything funny, maybe we can post it. If there isn't, no harm, no foul." They said, "Yeah,
Right.
sure, no problem." And Ben said, like, nobody's going to watch a bunch of 2-bit trumpet players and
And he still has that visual every time.
yeah.
What are you
So-
doing, Baker?
we I recorded and just edited what I thought were some funny moments, and it started to pick up steam. And so the numbering system just happens to be whenever we get together to do a concert series, that's a season.
All right.
It's not like an orchestral season. I haven't been doing this for 10 years. I've only been doing it for 1 year. But if we have a Masterworks 1, that's season 1. And then if we go to a pop show, that's season 2. Back to, And so season 10 represents the end of last orchestra season. So that's kind of trickling out now as I edit and pick up where we just recorded. So I always try to have a little something in the pipeline. So
Right. So I have to tell you, one of my favorite, I don't know if it was a season, but when y'all were in the pit, y'all were having so much fun down there.
we can get away with a lot more when we're in the pit than when we're out in front of everyone else. So expect the most shenanigans when it's really dark. Yeah.
And I have to be real honest, and we'll catch you up on what this means. But Mike, I had to, as I watch these, sometimes I'm like, is that good noise?
Oh,
Yeah.
from rehearsals. Yeah. It's good noise.
Mike has a theory that there's bad noise in a rehearsal and there's good noise in a rehearsal.
I think that's wise. I think I might even know what you're going with that. Yeah. Not all chatter from the band is bad.
That's right.
Yeah, I get that.
So
Ours is probably bad.
But that mic'd up is one of my guilty pleasures. I search it out.
Oh, good.
One of my
good,
favorites is how John plays the ultimate straight man.
Oh, isn't it cast perfectly?
It's cast perfect. I mean, you couldn't get a Hollywood agency to put you all together. It's the perfect personalities. You'll say something, he'll look at you like,
yeah. You've got
just
John as
deadpan.
the straight man. Ben is always causing trouble.
Yeah.
I'm there to kind of just be in the middle, goofy guy. Like,
But it is a lot of fun.
My other favorite is when you have a guest in one of the chairs and you're
Yes.
like, hey, everybody. And they're like, how involved do I get with this?
most of them have been warned beforehand. I always make sure to say, look, are you okay with being on camera? Number 1. And number 2, are you okay with being mic'd up? I have a few guiding principles, and I've worked with the symphony on these. Some people, I get a lot of questions in the comments like, does the orchestra know what you're doing? Do they approve?
That's what I'm
I
saying.
wondered
Good
that
noise.
too.
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
I work with our executive director and our music director. They know what's going on. It does bring what I hope is positive attention to the symphony, and hopefully people will buy a ticket, come meet Trumpets Mic'd Up guys.
That's fun.
But we have a few guiding principles. Number 1, we only take pot shots at ourselves. We only kind of make fun of our own mistakes. We never want to disparage anyone else. Number 2, we try to keep it funny, positive. And number 3, we only post if there's anything musical that goes out, we want it to sound great. Like I only record in rehearsals, and so sometimes mistakes are made, and so we don't necessarily want that to go out as like some negative view of the symphony. But yeah, I only ever record on the first rehearsal of a concert series because that's the limit of what I want to get away with being kind of goofy. The next few rehearsals, we tighten it up, and there's no mic'd up, no camera. So that we can always play our best at the concert. So,
but one of the things I think that, especially me, other trumpet players probably, is that you see, like the episode where the counting almost missed the entrance and suddenly grabbed it. We've all done that.
We've all been there.
Mutes go flying.
Yep.
I'm waiting for the episode where the conductor gets on to you. You might have to set that up.
I might need to set that up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I
said, trumpets, y'all need to pay attention. What is going on back there?
We have what I consider to be the world's greatest music director. Gary Lewis is just phenomenally
he's amazing.
good as a musician, as a communicator, as a conductor. Everything that he does is done with professionalism and joy. He's not above cracking some jokes in rehearsal, which I really, really like. But I don't think he would be comfortable being filmed in that way.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to film him; just have to have his voice.
So one thing that I was upset that I didn't catch was at our last series. It was during, it'll be season 11 when it comes out. We were doing the Dvorak cello concerto, and so Gary, it was the dress rehearsal, so I wasn't recording. Gary was trying to make sure that the balance of the orchestra wasn't overwhelming the cellist. So he said, Eric, do you mind just stepping out there? I was playing second trumpet, not that important. Do you mind stepping out there and listening for a while we do the first movement, make any notes about where the balance may be off? So I'm out there dutifully doing my job. Ben is covering all the trumpet parts beautifully on stage. And so they finished the first movement. Gary says, hey, Eric, come on back and let's talk about the balance. And as I'm walking back to the stage, he just says in front of the whole orchestra, trumpet sections never sounded better,
I could kind of feel that one coming. The balance is perfect with that, Eric.
Absolutely. And so I was quick to say it needs more trumpet, but other than that, it's fine. But
Okay.
no, we have a wonderful relationship. I really
Yeah.
count myself to be very blessed because the performers, everyone seems to have that balance of high quality musicianship, and we can laugh. It's not our entire identity isn't wrapped up in whether we missed one note.
It's not
Our goal is to
stuffing.
make music together and to edify one another. And I think we do that really well.
Nice, nice.
So I'm going to briefly summarize what I know of our time together. You are co-principal in the symphony.
That's right.
What is your title with West Texas Jazz Society?
I'm serving as the president of the West Texas Jazz Society.
So you're doing that. That's
Mhm.
two pretty big deal. I can't even try to say your title at the university.
It's way too long. Director of Community Engagement for Music and Visual Arts.
So you do that, which
Right.
I assume takes a bit of time. And you are kind of instrumental in there's a Mike, if you've never heard Current Nine, they just kill it. There's some
Okay.
great players, so much fun to watch. Not a They get thematic every once in a while and crack me up. Eric has some of the best suits you've ever seen. But did I miss anything? Is raising three beautiful daughters.
Family. Yeah.
Um,
That's the biggest one, I think.
so one of the things and by the way, wildly talented. Just saw the girls sing the national anthem at a minor league baseball game. Just crazy talented. So congrats for you for all that. I don't know how you keep all that organized and going. So there's probably an episode we could come back to about keeping things in their lane and knowing how to get everything when it needs to get done.
Yep.
But today we really kind of wanted to see if you would put on your educator hat from junior college, and because you spent time at Odessa College
That's
and
right.
now at the University of Texas Permian Basin, put on your upper level educator / recruiter hat, and let's kind of talk. And Mike, I want both of y'all to come at this from both sides. I think it's a really, if we contribute to people saying, I'm through with high school, I'm through with music, that's bad. I don't know that we ever do things like that intentionally. But in the thought of how do we encourage our students to make music lifelong, including going to university, I kind of want you guys to help me with some of that. How do we do that? How do we help our high school music educators? And this isn't just band, this is orchestra, choir, all the music, theater, any of the fine arts. Is that something, Mike, I'll start with you and you can move where you want to. Is that something we foster, or is that an organic thing that just kind of happens? Or are there things that we can do to say, hey, by the way, guys, all you seniors, I've loved having you. Don't let this be the end. And I'll just kind of drop it there and let you pick that up.
Okay, I'll pick it up. Yeah, as a high school director, it certainly doesn't happen organically. I don't think, because it's two separate worlds sometimes. So we have to build that bridge ourselves as an educator. But I had just so many jazz bands, concert bands that were collegiate level that would be coming through, and I would either they would call me and want a place to perform, or they're on their way on a tour or something like that, or I would literally call universities and say, hey, when do you guys go on tour? Would you stop by Abilene and stop at Wiley High School, etc.? Because I think the biggest thing that helps kids get connected with this idea is actually seeing college kids perform, and especially if it's like a wind ensemble that comes through and has maybe just one kid that came from our high school that's in there, and then they're kind of like a celebrity for the day. The kids, oh, check out so and so, and all these university groups do so well that the kids are so appreciative of it. But I think sometimes in our competitive nature as high school band directors, that we push away performance opportunities for universities. That's like, I don't have time for that. We've got to learn 4 more sets of drill, or we've got to get ready for that recording for honor band auditions, etc. So they kind of, well, we're too busy. We can't do that. So I think as a high school director, we've got to take time to develop that, because our kids will be better, probably one of my best trumpet players that ever came through is Charles Nail's grandson, Will Miller. And
Hmm.
then he would, when you were at Odessa College, I think he would drive
Yep.
out there and stay at Grandpa Band Camp, is what he called it. So
Yeah,
he'd be at Grandpa Band Camp and he'd work with Mr. Baker.
yeah, that's how I met Will. Was
Yeah.
Charles Nail just called me up and said, "Hey, I want you to listen to my grandson and teach him some things." And so, I did teach him for a while. And by teach, I just want to be clear, I would put music on the stand, and then Will would play it. That
That is
was the
kind of like Will.
extent.
No, you
That's
had a
the
lot more
extent of my
influence than that,
playing.
Eric. Yeah.
That's the extent of my teaching, was that I would just give him stuff to play. But no,
Yeah.
he's wonderful and still is one of my good friends. And in fact, you talked about Current Nine, Derek. Will is one of my top calls for a sub.
Oh, yeah.
Because now he's out here in West Texas, and if I
Yeah.
can't make a gig, I call Will.
How cool.
That's
How
cool.
So there's the high school side of it that we have to be open and uh, maybe not be so take our blinders off enough to see that even though we are on task and we have a goal and we're pointed a certain direction, it's probably beneficial to bring in. And, even from this, when you were saying that, there's lots of college and universities that play exhibitions
Mhm.
at festivals, at marching festivals, at contests. One of my friends who taught for a long time in Crane, Texas, he would bring his high school band down on a Friday. No, I just said that all wrong. He would bring his university band to his high school on a Friday night. And after the football game, they would do an exhibition. So
Nice.
always opportunities. What I hear you saying, Mike, is don't shy away from bringing those groups in and actually giving visibility and or open that door to say, is that something I want to do? Okay, Mr. Baker, other side of that, from the university standpoint now, from the college standpoint, what are you looking for? What opportunities are you, or could you share something else with us that a high school director could do to link up with college/university?
Yeah, I mean, this is a whole podcast right here just on effective recruiting and the messaging that we would want to share with our high school partners. But you talked about me being busy. I don't know anybody more busy than our big high school music educators. These 6A high school music educators are doing so much. And not only are they doing so much in their world, but they have to manage around testing and other schedules and all kinds of things that make their job already very difficult. And so we want to continue to support them and encourage them as much as we can because of all the things they're doing. And I think sometimes what can happen, and it's not the fault of the educators, but the students get pretty burned out.
Hmm.
Not because of the band. I come from the band world. The students love the band. They love being in the marching band. They love being in the concert band. They love doing all the festivals and TMEA and All-State. But when they think about how busy their life was in high school, with all of the testing, maybe they're working a part-time job, all these things, and they think about band, a lot of them are just burned out. And so it is hard to encourage them to continue on in higher ed unless we explain a few things, which is number one, the workload is not even close in university land as it will be in high school. Yeah, I know these kids are getting up at 6 in the morning. They've got sectionals at 7:30 or maybe even 7. They've got all these hours, and then they're still coming back in the evening once a week to do marching band fundamentals and workshops. And it's just not like that in college, just about anywhere you go. So I want to encourage students, number one, it's not as busy as you think. Number two, there are no competitions, right? You're just playing because you enjoy it and because you are a part of a bigger team. Number three, especially if you're moving away to a new college, you need to get some good friends in your life as quick as possible. And band, orchestra, choir is a great place to find them, as you know
Absolutely.
from high school.
Yeah.
So getting acclimated, having some friends, having some people to watch your back a little bit and help you navigate university life can be helpful. And then, I mean, obviously, the biggest recruiter we have is with scholarship dollars. I don't think enough students realize that they can subsidize their higher education through their art, whether that's theater, band, choir, orchestra, any of those things. So I think at UTPB, about 50% of our participants in any one of our ensembles are non-music majors. And I think it's probably closer to 60% non-majors in our marching band. Most, the big, most
Sure.
visible ensemble on a campus. So
Well,
we've got about 60% of those students are non-music majors, but they still play, they still earn scholarship, and they still have that opportunity.
That's awesome. And I think we were talking a little bit before we turned the cameras on that, you know, I follow University of Texas pretty closely. Uh, the volleyball band, the
Mm.
basketball bands.
Hmm.
I don't think the marching band, by and large, is music major at all. It's just people that loved doing that. And so you've got, engineering people, you've got all the disciplines, but they still come together as part of that marching band, and they still have that camaraderie. And as you say, I was the kid that without band was my family
Yeah,
in
that was
high
me.
school, even in college. I found me when I found the band. So I do think that if people stop long enough to consider, I'd not I'd not voiced that before. Going to a new place, you already know what those band people are like. So go
That's
hang
right.
out, have some
Yeah.
fun. So
Yeah.
okay. So you brought up the scholarship, and listen, I'm the oldest of five kids. Even back when I was going to school, scholarship was going to be part of it. How, Mike and Eric, how do we get kids connected? How do we encourage? What kind of uh, I think Mike mentioned this the other day. What kind of materials are we looking for? What does the university want from us? And that's a whole bunch of questions. So now I shut up and watch you guys walk through it.
I think the main question that comes to me that I want Eric to kind of think about for us is kids always ask, they're going to go audition at a university or a college, and what do I audition on? What are they looking for? So, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong because I'm wrong a lot of times. But I always tell the kids
It's
that,
the basis of our show.
yeah, it's the base of our show. That's kind of but I don't think they're looking necessarily for some kind of virtuoso musician. I think they want a good tone quality, a little bit of technique, and a kid that's reliable. And if you do those three things, so they'll toss you some money for it. Now, if you're an incredible musician, yeah, they're going to toss you money. But just make a good point about if you're having an audition, show up early, be on time, communicate professionally through that. And to me, I would think tone quality first, and then maybe a little bit of technique. But what do you think, Eric?
I have to echo everything you just said. Here at the University of Texas Permian Basin, our band director of bands, Dr. Brian Brow, says, really what we're doing is we're making humans. We just use music to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
That's great.
our values, the things that we're looking for in people, relate to music, but are not ultimately music. All those things you just said. We're looking for young people who communicate well. We're looking for people who are responsible, on time, ready to work. Because when students do those fundamental behaviors, if you do those 90% of the time, then that one time when you do get a flat tire, or that one time when you do lose someone in your family and need to miss a few days because of, grieving and a funeral, whatever the case may be, when you've done that work and demonstrated that responsibility, it is so easy for a director, a teacher to give that time to that student and say, hey, not only am I going to give you that time off, what can I do for you? But when people come in and in the first week or two, they're sketchy about their attendance, they give excuses why they can't practice, they're forgetting things, they're not really managing their time well. It's really hard then to give the appropriate amount of grace when it's needed because you feel like you've kind of been abused a little bit on the
Hmm.
front end. So for any student that's like, hey, I want to play, again, we'll just use band. That's my field, but this is for just about everyone here. If you want to play in college, uh, prepare some audition material. Most places are looking for two contrasting etudes or pieces of work. We want to hear some technique. We want to hear you play something fast and pretty virtuosic. We also want to hear if you can play a phrase, so something a little bit more lyrical. And many students get that from the all-state etudes or from a
That's what I'm
solo and
going to say.
ensemble piece
Right.
that they played. This is perfect fodder. Some students will say, "Well, I didn't know if that was appropriate because I've already played it." No, we want you to play your best. We don't want you to come in and try something that's too hard and doesn't represent how well you really play. So
And
we
if you
want you to
hadn't told
choose
us,
that.
we wouldn't know you'd already played it.
Right. Just play what makes you sound good. And then sometimes there will be some sight reading just to double check the skill set of a person coming in. But honestly, that's really just for those who might want to pursue music as a career. The level for a music major is going to be higher than the level for a student who just wants to play in the band but wants to be an engineering major or some other career field. So tone is great. For me, it's always time. Can you count? Can you
Okay.
tone and time are 99% of it for me. The other stuff is a little bit subjective sometimes, so you can sort of tweak. Um, but yeah, tone and time have a few things that are contrasting styles. And again, the number one thing is communication. So here at the University of Texas Permian Basin, we have a very, very short online form that we ask students to fill out. Once that form gets submitted, it will then be routed to the important person, whether that's choir, band, orchestra, jazz, mariachi, whatever your field is. And that person is going to reach out to you through the email that you provided in the form. If you don't ever check that, if you don't ever respond, there's only so much we can do to help you, right? So communication is key in just about everything we do here in the music world.
Cool.
And I'm glad you mentioned the difference between if you're going to be a music major or if you're just going to be a participant and you're like a pre-med or something of that nature. Because that always confused my kids. And I'm glad you said that because I always said it that way. So they're not looking for exactly the same attributes if you're a chemistry major and you want to be in the marching band than if you're going to be a trumpet performance major and go
Yep.
in. And with the communication, and I'm sure you've run into this, I'd have to tell my kids, make sure that you communicate with them, not your parents.
Yeah, that's a
Because
big part in
that's
college.
a big part because their parents will send the emails and the parents will call me and say, well, I contacted these four universities and they're not. Why isn't your child communicating with this university? They want to know how your kid is. You're not playing trombone in that band as a parent. The kid is. So
That's right.
I'm just throwing that out there. Just it seems so common sense, but in today's world, a lot of helicopter parents will do all the communication for them and
It could
present
be
their
that.
child like some kind of entree.
That's right. It could be that, and there's a the line gets a little bit blurred nowadays because in this generation, and I'm a big fan of things like dual credit and
Hmm.
early enrollment. Those I think for the right students provide some excellent opportunities, and so it could be that for some of your high performing students, if they've done some dual credit or if they've had a little bit of access in the college world, but as a young person, mom and dad might expect to be a little bit more involved. But what needs, some education on the parent side is once that student's enrolled in secondary education, um, the FERPA law, FERPA, right? That law requires that the university only deal with educational matters directly with that student.
Hmm.
And so those phone calls, those emails, there's only so much I can do as a faculty member. Um, I've got to work with the student directly. I just can't work with the parents. And so sometimes they don't like to hear that, and it certainly isn't anything personal. It is just a federal law that we have to abide by.
Hmm.
Um, and there are ways to make sure that the parents feel involved. If we were to do a phone call or even a meeting in my office and all three parties were present, if I was there, the student was there, and they bring a parent or a guardian with them, then I am free to discuss those things in front of those people. I just can't do it without the student's consent. So yeah, those are other important things. I think there's some great education that needs to happen. Fortunately, and this kind of gets back to your question, Derek, about like how can we help music educators in our high schools, help their students navigate these things. Make sure that you're paying attention to when the local university is going to be on your campus because they're going to send representatives over there that are going to help the students with their FAFSA. They're going to help them with any applications. In Texas, we use Apply Texas, which is a fantastic online application. You do it once and it'll go to just about every university in Texas. They all use that same platform. Um, and then there are just follow-up things that you kind of have to do and you got to stay on top of. But let the universities, when they come to your campus, let your students know about that. Like, hey, seniors, today I'm letting you out 10 minutes early because I want you to get across campus and go to the college fair, and make sure you're aggressive about, getting these things done. So,
Cool. I'm gonna slide back just a quick moment because I know my experience. Is it important to make sure that we stress that this audition is not for exclusion? This audition is for inclusion.
mm,
That
yeah,
that this is to let them see that you would be an asset. It's not like they're going to go, yeah, we don't even want you in the program.
yeah,
Who do you think you are?
mm,
And that's trumpet mentality, I suppose. It's kind of the competitive watch this. But I do think it's important for our high school educators to help everybody remember this isn't about it's there's no ranking system in the the scholarship audition. First place scholarship goes to, at least I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's more about, man, what a great fit you'd be. And this is how we feel about that. I'm going to show you monetarily that we're excited you're coming. Yes, no, is that too utopian in thought? Or
No, not at all. And it brings up another part of the audition process that we don't talk a lot, and that's there's going to be an interview after that. It could be just 10 or 15 minutes. But what you just said, Derek, is we're trying to find out what you bring to the table, right? We're excited to have you. And very few institutions right now are in a place where they're just so overwhelmed with musicians that they're going to be turning a bunch of people away. If you bring the skill of music to your university, they're going to find a way to use that. They're going to find a way for you to get plugged in. So yeah, they're going to want to get to know you. What asset do you have? What other leadership skills do you have in addition to your playing? Were you color guard captain? Did you do things in all region, whether you made it or not? These skills are the really the important skills. And I was talking on another podcast recently about a conversation my wife and I had recently about what is a successful music education. What does that look like? Because our daughter is very into choir and she's very into TMEA and she desperately wants to be an all-state, singer. And I want that for her. But as I look back over my life, I can point to just as many all-state musicians who were burned out and never did music again, ever, even as an amateur. And I can have the same number of people who I went to high school with who never made all-state, but I've watched them and they have excellent music education careers or even performance careers. And that, I think, says a lot about what a successful music education is, especially in Texas, where we like to be very competitive. And I'm not against competition. I think that it can, if it's done pedagogically, it can help everybody. But if all we do is rely on, well, I did or I did not make all state, or I made a one on my solo, or I did not make a one on my solo, and that's the measure of my worth or success in music, we've really missed the boat. We're trying to make people who, like you said, are lifelong musicians. I want those people in community bands. I want those people volunteering to be band parents years after their kids have left the program, because they see the value in it and they love it and they want to continue to support it. To me, that's a much better marker of a successful music education.
Mike?
Yeah, and I think something to kind of add to that, something you have in your arsenal. I went to a smaller university, Midwestern State, up in Wichita Falls, and in a smaller university, I had advantages in scholarship and advantages in participation than if I'd have gone to a bigger university. I know people who went to UNT and they have concert bands they take to contest and perform with, but they never played in a concert band at college.
Hmm.
Think about that for a second, because
Yeah.
they just didn't do it. They didn't have the opportunity. But in my case, I was able to do a theory comp degree. I was able to do a junior recital on piano and get a
Wow.
trumpet performance degree. So, and granted, sometimes it's different things, but I really feel like that helped me a lot going to a smaller university rather than going to a huge assembly line, crank it out kind of university. I'm not trying to put down any universities. I love Texas Tech because they took a lot of my money to educate my child. So it's a great school. But I think that's something too that I would tell kids. They'd say, well, I want to go to UTPB or whatever. I want to go to this school, or I want to go to Cisco Junior College for a year. And they were almost like, am I failing at this? And I said, no, I think you're very intelligent. Go ahead and get that education, have lots more opportunities at a more competitive price. And then, because if you go to a larger university, you're just going to have the fifth graduate assistant on trumpet teaching you the lessons, and they might be incredible, but they might not.
Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
so I'm just going to throw that in there. But I think all the things you mentioned were absolutely on point. So it makes me feel good because the things you're saying are the things I'm agreeing with. So at least we're on the same page. If I was a high school director still and you were still doing your thing, we'd think exactly alike. I'd be
Good.
tunneling those kids to you.
Yeah, good.
And I
Yeah.
also think, and I'm going to jump in here and kind of promote, I think, your side of it, Mr. Baker, that don't, again, from the standpoint of we're not talking about a service band audition, we're talking about how can we fit that program. Do you have people on your staff, or is it you that actually reach out to the high school directors and say, "Hey, listen, can I come talk to your group? Can I come share what we're doing?" And I realize everything's busy, and we try to compact everything we can into a rehearsal. But when I listened to Mike's statement, there, communication, and you said it earlier in the thing. Anything that you can do to open that communication and be clear in that communication. What can we do as high school directors to help you?
Yeah, well, I have done some of that, but really each ensemble leader is responsible to be out in the community working with those directors. So Dr. Brow, Dr. Iben in our band world, and Dr. Veit, our percussion director, I know that they are out regularly um, judging competitions in the band halls. When I was at Odessa College, I just happened to go to Permian High School every Tuesday morning. That was just, it was part of my schedule. And so it was called Baker Tuesdays, but I was just there. And I didn't go just once to make a big pitch about how special Odessa College was. What I did was I went every Tuesday and I wouldn't talk about the university or the college 99% of the time, but I'm talking to students. I'm walking around. I'm offering some help. I'm just shaking hands and building relationships with directors. And to their credit, West Texas band directors are very generous with their time. To a person out here, if I ever wanted to say, "Hey, can I just pop in for rehearsal and just say hello?" The answer is always yes. So I think having that great relationship is assisting us in building up the program here at UTPB because all the music educators at the high school level want the best for their students, right? They want them to succeed. And 4 years in a band orchestra choir program, sometimes those directors act almost like surrogate parents. I mean, the word that they carry has a lot of weight. So if somebody says, that UTPB, that's a pretty good program, you should consider going there. That has a lot more weight to a student than when I show up with all the flashy pencils and pens and swag and say, "Hey, everybody come to UTPB, it's great." I get a paycheck from the university. Of course, I think it's great. But when that director or someone that really has that relationship says it means a lot. So um, remembering that high school directors want the best for their students, remembering that university ensemble directors also want the best for incoming students. They want them to find their people, find their tribe, get a scholarship. This makes those conversations a lot easier because we're all coming from the same place. And we're not trying to steal or play competitive games. We're just saying, look, I think UTPB is going to be great for your student. Here's why. I would love for you to, set up a meeting or something.
But
That
you
helps.
are just trumpeting. See what I did there?
Hey,
My one of my second uh, in this conversation, you hit two of my core things: communication and relationship.
mm,
I think Mike and I talk all the time that kids are smarter now, I think, than they were 30 years ago. Not that they were stupid, but as far as street smarts.
yep,
And if you show up one time, give a great pitch, and they never see you again, they see right through that.
yeah,
Relationship, though, and that guy's here all the time. He's pretty cool. He's more interested in what we're doing than trying to talk me into something. I think
yeah.
that matters, and it
I do
speaks
too.
volumes as to their comfort level and where they want to go. So, Mike, I don't know if you have many more. I'm going to try and let Eric wrap this up, uh,
Okay.
talking about your place specifically. How's it going there? I do that because we intend this to be a national audience, but we're local people to
Yep.
West Texas here. I'm seeing so many more people in the schools. I mean, actually teaching and working coming from the University of Texas Permian Basin. Are y'all seeing? And I know it has to be intentional. Are you riding a wave? Is this just talk to us about your university here? What? How's that? How are y'all? Talk to Eric. How are y'all making that happen? Is it just the product of intentional things that you've done? And
Yeah, so this is my second year. I've only really done 1 year as an employee of UTPB, at least as a full-time employee. When I first moved to West Texas about 2006, the university had just resurrected the music program after some dormant period of time. And they hired Dr. Dan Keast, who is still here. He is the department chair. He's a band guy. He's a tuba player by from his background. And it was his task to resurrect this program, to build back the university music program. So for 19 years, 20 years at this point, almost, he's been working very hard at um, building the student population, so increasing the recruiting opportunities that we have here. He's made some excellent strategic hires. So when it started, it was just him, and I actually came on board as an adjunct to teach the jazz band, which was like a combo setting at that time, which was really fun. So I did a little adjunct work here at UTBB when I first got out into West Texas. Now we're sitting at 9 full-time employees, a dozen, maybe 20 adjunct employees that do a lot of our applied lessons. We've got a dedicated, full-time dedicated staff person who helps us with calendar and facilities. What he's done is build this team up and then has empowered and deployed them to do a lot of that work. So now we can see a bigger return on our investment. And yes, one of the things that I was super excited to see when I came last year was how many graduates of the program, and we just do music education here. That's the size of the program. We don't have multiple degrees. We do bachelors of music and music education. So many of the graduates came from this area and want to stay here in West Texas. And whether they stay here for their whole career or just give a few years and then move on, it's fine with us. But to see our students grow here, graduate, and then go work in the community. So we've got several that are doing student teaching. We've got several who just got hired by ECISD. That's one of our local school districts out in this area. It's wonderful to see that because I'm hopeful that those people will be the champions in the schools for our program. We are housed out at the beautiful Wagner Noel Performing Arts Center. And so it is world-class facility. Despite the state of my office, I promise this is a world-class facility, and our students get an opportunity to perform in acoustically and visually one of the most beautiful halls I've ever seen in my life. So there's a real draw there for the students and some of the activities and what's the word I'm looking for? Opportunities that they have here. So it's been a wonderful wave, as you mentioned, to see that happen over the last 15 to 20 years, but I'm seeing it increase pretty quickly. Between last year and this year, we've seen a significant increase in music enrollment, specifically music majors. That's very exciting. I think a lot of that is the work of Dr. Brow and Dr. Iben, the director of bands and associate director of bands. They'll actually be doing one of those exhibitions you mentioned for the state marching contest down in San Antonio in November. UTPB is going to get to go do an exhibition. I think that's excellent
Cool
exposure for our students and for our university. So through these slow, small, incremental steps, right? The atomic habits, as I've seen one author write, these things are starting to catch up with us, and it's going very well.
You'll find Mike is an ardent advocate for atomic habits.
Disciple, worshiper of atomic habits.
So,
well, I hope I used that properly.
You did.
Okay, good.
I want to just jump in on that Wagner Noel. If you've never seen it, go tour it.
Beautiful.
And it has astounded me the number of just really well-known artists and performers that don't necessarily talk about anything. Once they've been here, they just start preaching the gospel of, you got to see this place.
Yeah.
In the middle of West Texas, just this phenomenal place to perform. And, the local schools have done contests there before, and I've done announcing for it, and I don't use a microphone.
Yeah.
When the next band to perform, I can just talk as me, and people in the back of the balcony are like, oh, yeah, we can hear you. It's pretty amazing. Right. So you got that going for you. I know athletically, they're always talking about upgrading their facilities. I don't know that you find a better facility for music, at least, or performance.
No, the only thing we would do is in the future, we know that we're going to have some kind of a separate building for the music program. Right now, the Wagner Noel functions both as a performance space and a working roadhouse. I mean, there's a new show in almost every night out here. So it is a professional space and an academic learning space. But when it was built 15 years ago, we didn't have the same number of music majors. Like we've really outgrown the space in a good way. And so now, if you're familiar with the campus out here in Midland, there's the Wagner Noel Performing Arts Center. There's a building called the SEED building, the Center for Energy and Environmental Diversification, and a brand new engineering building that the university has built within the last few years. We have encroached upon some of those buildings for some of our music classes because we just don't have the space out here. So in the future, the need will be for a brand new music building that can separate itself in a good way from the Roadhouse element so they can have that space and use that. We can have a bigger space full of classrooms, offices, and rehearsal halls, which will be a wonderful addition. So there's talks, there's ideas about what that would look like and how that would fit into the grand scheme of things. I think if the Ask Mike podcast would like to, be a donor, I think for maybe a cool 1.5, we could put your name on the band hall. But
I
We'll
can only go
consider.
about 800,000.
all right, that'll get you a practice room.
Okay, very good. A
I do
practice
wanna
room and a
mention-
bathroom. We're negotiating. I want a bathroom.
That's
with a
one
brass-
urinal. Yeah.
Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah, one urinal.
But I will tell you, the seed building and the engineering building are just as beautiful.
They're fantastic. They're
It's
wonderful.
just- you just pull up and you go, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, really.
Yep.
So, my friend, thank you so much for sharing some of your morning with us. I just think it's awesome, some of the things that you wind up involved in, and I hope that you're enjoying life, brother.
It's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. I think if you know anything about West Texas, for people who are listening, so many people talk about how quickly they can get out, or there's all kinds of memes and things that people say about Midland and Odessa. But my wife and I have found a really beautiful home here. We found great people. Derek, you're chief among the people that I just count to be a good friend and someone I can go to asking questions. And you've always been a great supporter. Into music as a whole, just the way that I'm treated when I walk through those doors it's embarrassing to me. People stop, Mr. Baker's here. Everybody come out. I'm just another person, but it's embarrassing how well I'm treated by you folks. And so I have found it to be a wonderful place. And I will say this for music students, or for people who want to come here and work, or maybe you're in a smaller town. When I came to Midland, Odessa, I expected there won't be a lot of things going on. There won't be a lot of art. There won't be a lot of, gigs and music. There won't be a big scene out here. And while that was not exactly true, there was a much bigger scene than I was aware. The good news is you can make anything you want out here. So all those things that Derek listed off, I play in this band, I do this orchestra, that's because it's fertile ground out here. If you have that entrepreneurial spirit, or entrepreneurial, it's hard to say, spirit, and you want to get out there and make something happen, you can. So I would encourage young people, don't let a lack of a degree or some artificial hurdle keep you from saying, I just want to start a small group and go play in a restaurant on the weekends and start making some money. You'll make a little money. You'll make yourself a better musician. You'll make your community better by having you there. Go out and start stuff, because you'll start to make your home and your life out here much more enriched. So that's my little soapbox. Go make art.
And that is where we need to let this go. Well said, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Mike. Hope you have a great week. Go out and continue the gospel. Preach
That's
it
right.
wherever they'll hear it. And I appreciate you all. I hope we get a chance to do this again soon. I hope you're open to coming back and having another conversation, Mr. Baker.
Anytime.
All right, brothers. See ya.